Richard Mack is an author, speaker, former Arizona sheriff, and one of the most well-known and respected sheriffs our country has ever had. He is the author of The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope, From My Cold Dead Fingers, and The Proper Role of Law Enforcement, and his newest book, The Magic of Gun Control. Sheriff Mack is the primary force behind the upcoming Second Constitutional Sheriff's Conference, coming up in Las Vegas, Nevada, later this month. He visits with us regularly. Let's welcome back to the Global Freedom Report, Sheriff Richard Mack. Richard, how are you?
Doing really good, Brent. Thank you so much for having me back on, and I'm really looking forward to this second convention with the people of this country working with sheriffs and local officials to restore our freedom.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear about it. But let's take a call from Tammy first. And Tammy, you're on with Richard Mack.
Hello, Sheriff Mack. My name is Tammy, and I'm from Texas, and got a few questions for you because I've been an admirer of yours for a while, but I'm a little confused lately. I'm wondering why you would throw your support behind Romney when he's invested in pharmaceutical companies and he makes money from some of the same companies that are responsible for putting mercury and thimerosal in the vaccinations of our babies, of which my daughter is a victim. He also he's heavily been contributed to by the pharmaceutical companies by about $750,000 to his campaign, and he supports forced vaccinations. Why are you supporting a man like that?
Well, first of all, I did not endorse him, as some people have claimed. People asked who I was voting for, and I told them the truth. And quite frankly, I don't believe there's really much difference. It's not going to do any good who we vote for. But this time, I am doing one thing and one thing only. In any military action or any law enforcement action, if you have to attack, you attack the most immediate threat to you. The most immediate threat to our country is Barack Obama. I know what he represents, and I know what Mitt Romney represents. I am no fan of Mitt Romney, but this time I am not going to vote for third party. I'm not going to write in Ron Paul. That's absolutely ridiculous. He is not a write-in candidate. I am not going to abstain from voting, and I know that if we get Mitt Romney elected, we will fight him, but I cannot justify allowing a communist
who has announced publicly that he is going to be flexible in going after our country and destroying our country. I cannot sit by and say, I ignored the immediate threat, and I went back and did the threat 1,000 yards away from us. It makes no sense to me for us to do that. There is no perfect candidate. Even Ron Paul himself has endorsed other candidates, even one running against me, who supported NDAA and the pharmaceutical companies and all the other stuff that is horrible to even imagine. But this time I am voting for the lesser of two evils. And I admit the next target and immediate threat, right behind Barack Obama is Mitt Romney. I do not care for the Democrat Party or the Republican Party. They have both been a bane to America. But my strategy is simply this. We must get rid of Barack Obama.
Tammy? Tammy?
I see. Yes.
Yeah, was there anything else?
Oh, yeah. I don't know that I can agree with some of what you said, but I just don't know that I can agree with getting in there and trying to vote once more the lesser of two evils. I don't think either party has the answer, and based on my own life experiences, that of my daughters, I don't think that I could endorse anyone.
Who are you voting for? Who are you voting for? Who are you voting for?
Who am I?
Yeah.
I'm not participating in this.
Okay, Tammy, I'm going to have to, Tammy, I've got to let you go. We're up against the clock, but I really appreciate you raised a good point. And Richard, I appreciate your position, though I have to say I also can share some of what Tammy's views are, because when you vote for the lesser of two evils, you're still voting for evil. But I can also appreciate, more than most, everything you're saying. And I still haven't even had a chance to ask you a single question, and we have another caller who's calling in to talk with. Chuck is calling in from Texas. Chuck, welcome to the show. You're on the air with Richard Mack.
How you doing, guys?
Doing great.
Hey, Sheriff Mack, in Fort Worth whenever you came down and did a presentation. I was really pleased with you at the time. And I tell you, I've got a ride with Tammy, who called in earlier on this one. Man, look, if you vote for something you voted for, what's the difference between Obama? He's gone over, he's kissed Israel's butt. We know he's going to take us to war. And he's going to take us to war for the same reason whatever name of the guy is who's in the White House right now goes by at the moment, because they're going to have to put us down. Now, look, this man has been involved in crony capitalism. He's the worst of the worst of the worst of Republican type. There's not a lick of difference between them. And the moment you say that you will vote for him, like it or not, hold my nose, all that, it destroys your credibility with people like me who give you money, who support you 100%, who will be there when it's rough. We need to know that you will be there for us, not that when as soon as you start running for office, you back off and turn into another big R.
No, that's not true. Plain and simply, the guy that actually turned and ran from me was Ron Paul, and I asked for his endorsement when I was running against Lamar Smith, and he refused to give it. I still voted for Ron Paul, and he was still the best candidate. And when I had a chance to vote for the best candidate, I did. Now, abstaining does not get rid of the threat. Voting for third party does not get rid of the threat. And this is the deal. And we don't need to belabor this point, because I know what you're saying and I understand it. I have voted for third party in the past, and I've endorsed third party candidates in the past. But this is everybody continues to ignore the war that we're in here in America. You still cannot ignore the most immediate threat. If someone were standing over you, let's put it this way: if someone were standing over your wife or your daughter, and they had a knife and they were ready to stab or kill your daughter or wife, and then there was another assailant about 50 feet away, would you really tell me that you're going to attack the assailant 50 feet away and let the first threat kill your wife or daughter? That makes no sense whatsoever. Now, I understand I've never heard before voting for evil, voting for the lesser two evils is still evil. I understand all of that, and I understand the Republican Party and the Democrat Party are owned by the same people. First of all, I'm not dumb. I've been around this movement a little bit before, but if I could go back in history and vote for the guy who ran against Hitler, I would do it. I would do it now. And that's pretty close to what we're deciding. We are deciding whether or not we would allow our work and our effort to keep a Barack Obama in office. I can't justify that morally. I can't justify it in my own heart or conscience. And this time, I'm saying, give us some time to fight another day, because that's all we get from Mitt Romney. I know who he is. I know what he represents. I don't like either Democrat or Republican Party. But then again, a lot of us got behind Ron Paul, and he's been a Republican for 20 years. And is it a compromise that he became a Republican? Well, he did the best he could with the hand he was dealt. I'm doing the best I can with the hand I'm dealt. For anybody else to say, "Oh, I'm going to write in Ron Paul," that's absurd. That vote will not be counted. And voting anyway is pretty marginal at best. It's not going to do much good either way. I admit that. But my symbolic gesture is to tell the world and tell everyone else that we want this communist out of the White House. And who causes wars and taking us to wars? Bush did it, Clinton did it, Reagan did it, Obama's done it, and he'll do it again. And, so to say you're not going to vote for somebody who's going to take us to war, well, that's already happened with them all. This whole thing really does not need to be belabored because it's pretty symbolic at best and who we're going to vote for.
And Richard, I appreciate your going so in depth into it. Chuck, I appreciate the call. I do not want to belabor this. We had a couple of calls about it. Richard has eloquently expressed his position. You can agree with him. You can disagree with him. I personally have mixed feelings, and I will have the last word on this since I'm the host, and then we're going to move on. And the last word I want to say on this is that I believe that people, Richard and Chuck and Tammy, are crying out for someone to come up and take a stand for principle. When Ron Paul was essentially ousted from the RNC by a criminal cabal, which is what I think happened at the RNC last week, people wanted to see someone come out and stand on principle. Even if standing on principle loses, people continuously, for decades, have refused to stand on principle because winning is more important. And until we stand on principle, until principle becomes more important than winning, nothing is ever going to change. And that's the last word on this particular aspect of it. We can talk more about this some other time. But I have a number of things I want to ask you, Richard. And the first one is this. How big of a problem is it, the ignorance by sitting sheriffs of their lawful constitution and authority, and or the unwillingness to use that authority to protect their citizens from violations by federal administrative agencies? How big of a problem is it?
Well, I think that's really the subject that we should be talking about. There is a solution to what's going on in this country, and it's not going to be provided by who we vote for at the federal level. There is no solution in Washington, D.C., so we have to pursue a solution elsewhere. And the work that I've been doing with county sheriffs is that solution. And the problem is, just as you mentioned in your question, the sheriffs of this country do not understand their authority. They do not understand their duty and responsibility, and they are also at the federal trough taking in money, and so they don't want to upset the apple cart, and they don't want to cause problems and take away the funds that have been coming to them from the federal government, and nor do they realize that it is immoral and wrong and unconstitutional to take money from the taxpayers that has been stolen from them by the federal government and then allotted in grant bribery money back to sheriff's offices and police departments. It is also immoral how we tax the citizens through citations and fines and prison sentences. And as soon as we get more constitutional sheriffs on board, and we have hundreds of sheriffs like Brad Rogers in Indiana and John Lope in California and Dean Wilson in California, and strengthen these men and other sheriffs across this country who want to keep their oath. I spoke to a sheriff yesterday in Wisconsin, and he wants to help an Amish farmer who's being attacked in his county, and he wants to learn. And there are a lot of humble sheriffs out there who want to do what's best for their citizens, but really don't. They've been brought up in a system that does not teach that, does not exemplify this, and we are now moving forward with a solution that when we have sheriffs keep their oath, understand their duty to freedom and their Constitution and God-given principles, then we're going to take our country back, sheriff by sheriff, county by county, and state by state. Well, but this is what I've dedicated my life to. I probably should have never said who I was going to vote for, so that was not a distraction, because it has become a distraction. It really has.
Like it or not, Richard.
My wife says, "Why do you tell people the truth? Why do you tell people the truth?"
No, that's
just my nature.
Telling the truth is important, but it doesn't mean you have to say everything about everything that you do in your life. You do get to have a private life, but you are a public figure. And like it or not, that means that when you say something, a lot more people hear it than when, just somebody who isn't a public figure says the same thing.
Yeah, and I understand that, and I still don't mind telling why I feel that way, and I still think and I've argued with people that I really respect on this, and I respect both sides. I do. I totally understand my viewpoint, and Peter Schiff is totally on board with me. Obviously, Rand Paul is too, but I believe there's some logic both ways. I understand it, but there's nothing there to abandon me or abandon the cause I work for. The plain and simple truth of it all is we have got to band together for the solution that is there in front of us, and that's at the local level. The founding fathers support what we're doing. The quote from Thomas Jefferson I love is that the top executive of the county is the county sheriff. He is the ultimate protector. And when we get these sheriffs educated and motivated to do just that, we're going to win. And in fact, if we just have one county doing that, we can move there. And I will. And right now, I'm running for undersheriff. I've got a big announcement for you. I'm running for undersheriff in Lincoln County, New Mexico, with Dr. Ray Seidel. And Dr. Seidel's running for sheriff, and I'm going to be his undersheriff, and we're going to make it the freest county in America.
Fantastic. Well, now let me ask you a question, just some questions about the powers of sheriff on a practical viewpoint. For example, we've had reports of police giving drugs to people in exchange for them infiltrating Occupy Wall Street protests around the country and spying on protesters. If a sheriff learned of such activities in an incorporated area, such as a city, what, if anything, could he do about it?
Well, he has countywide jurisdiction, and he should be taking action on something like that. Sheriff Joe Arpaio went into the city of Mesa and enforced some immigration laws right under the nose of the chief of police. And the chief of police didn't like it, but quite frankly, it was too bad. There was nothing he could do about it because the sheriff has countywide jurisdiction. As a matter of practice, we have a gentleman's agreement that we stay in the non-incorporated parts of the county and enforce the law there and keep the peace there, and that the chief of police will stay within the incorporated parts and the city limits of whatever jurisdiction he's in. Well, quite frankly, he doesn't have to, and Sheriff Arpaio doesn't have to, and no sheriff has to. And if the chief of police is doing something wrong, or any other police officer is doing something wrong, then absolutely the sheriff should call for an investigation, just as Sheriff Arpaio has been the only sheriff in American history to do a criminal investigation on the President of the United States. Now, it matters little who the violator is.
Now okay, so just to clarify, okay, because one of the other big things that's been happening is people getting harassed, threatened, even arrested by police again for videotaping them in the performance of their public duties. Now, anybody who knows anything would understand that it's clearly lawless to videotape, to arrest someone for videotaping a public officer performing a public duty. It's public. But you're saying a sheriff could actually go in, and a sheriff could do something. Could a sheriff go in and arrest the cops? I mean, could a sheriff actually go that far?
Of course he could, and we have suggested that he do so with federal agents who come in and do similar things. It doesn't matter who violates the law, and absolutely the chief of police should be taking action against his officers who have arrested people who've been videotaping them. I've addressed this subject for almost a year now, where these idiot cops get out there and say, you can't videotape me. I'll tell you what, every cop who doesn't know, as soon as he puts that uniform on and he's out in public, who doesn't know he's going to be videotaped and that he's open game is an idiot. And he's even worse, he's a criminal if he arrests somebody who's doing it.
Yeah, but they get away with it.
I've seen the arrest.
They get away with it.
Well, of course they do. They do because they have... we have very poor leadership in the law enforcement community today, and I do know that there's been some chiefs or sheriffs that have taken action against this, and they've put a stop to it. They didn't take any disciplinary action against the officer except to correct him and say, look, once you're out in public, whether it's their eye or their camera watching you, That's just too bad. I mean, the Rodney King thing was a historical event that where that occurred. Bystanders are filming the cops beating this man halfway to death, and some of them tried to say they were following training. If any idiot in law enforcement thinks that that's training and that it's okay to do because you were trained to do that, then you're an idiot. And you shouldn't be in that uniform. Or the officer who twice as big as the 72-year-old lady, and he tases her because he can't control a 72-year-old lady.
Well, and that's the
absurdity that I get sick of.
But that's the mentality of I was only following orders. You know, I mean, I'm only doing what I was trained to do. I'm only following orders. That cannot be acceptable. But you're saying that in all those circumstances, the sheriff does have the power to address the injustice, to actually go after the cop or whomever is good. Excellent. That's good. That's good to know. That's
of course. And but what I know about all of this, though, Brent, and this is the wait. Are we okay?
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. I was getting some background there, but anyway, this is the whole thing, Brent. If we return to constitutional principles within the law enforcement community, then these types of incidents are going to stop. If we train and practice and implement the Constitution and our oath of office as part of our job on a daily basis, then these types of things are going to stop. The ethical application of our oath of office as peace officers will prevent and stop most of these types of idiotic and tyrannical abuses by peace officers all across this country. It is a matter of leadership. It is a matter of training. It is a matter of returning to these basic fundamental principles and knowing and understanding our oath and obligation to uphold and defend the U.S. Constitution. And we have sheriffs doing this. It's going too slowly, but I want to see it speeded up, and that's exactly why we're having this convention on Constitution Day.
And we're going to coming up and next week. We're going to talk about that in the next segment. But right now we have a caller on the line. Tom is calling in from Florida. Thanks for waiting, Tom. You're on the air with Sheriff Richard Mack.
Can you hear me, Brent?
Sure can.
Hello? Oh, okay. Yeah, this is formerly Tom from Everywhere. Sheriff Mack, I just want to have to say thank you for doing what you've been doing. I live down here in Fort Myers, Florida. I used to live everywhere. And I was talking to a deputy, and I asked him, I said, does the sheriff know that he's the highest law in the land? And he said, oh, yeah. And I said, you know, he proceeds over state and federal and everything else. Oh, no, we have to do what they tell us. And it's like, oh, no.
Well, it doesn't sound like he understood your first question.
No. And of course, I mean, we all have our own voting preferences, and I think that it doesn't matter if you ever looked into the voting machine fraud. It don't matter who you're voting for. So I'm taking a Sharpie with me on voting day, and I'm writing Ron Paul right across my ballot because it's not going to matter. They already know who they want.
All right, Tom.
You're probably correct.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for the call. I appreciate that. I know Richard appreciates it as well. Richard, have the courts taken a position regarding the sheriff's powers?